Good morning. Welcome to our webinar today here hosted by Bytes and Sophos. So today we'll be covering wiping out avoidable breaches. So a quick introduction around the agenda. We'll cover off introductions, the way attackers are now targeting organizations, what we can learn from cloud breaches, how to significantly reduce alert fatigue, and how to shrink incident response times. So here at Bytes, I'm Lloyd. I'm the Sophos Business Development Manager here at Bytes. And we've been working very closely with Sophos over the years. I support all of our customers across their cybersecurity strategies. And, Bytes are a cloud-first business, and, we take cloud security very seriously as well. We're a top-tier Sophos Platinum partner and have been a strategic Sophos partner since 2013. We work very closely with Sophos and our customers and deliver, truly valued solutions. And we've also recently been recognized as both the Enterprise Partner of the Year and the Public Cloud Partner of the Year for 2020. Here at Bytes, we've got a dedicated cloud team and also dedicated security teams to support all of our customers. Be that on their journeys, either stepping into cloud or, well-established organizations already heavily invested in cloud areas. We're currently the #1 Azure partner in the UK, and we're also the fastest growing AWS partner. All of this in conjunction and, the relationships and valued offerings that we can actually provide and help our customers in all of these areas mean we can truly, deliver valued solutions, which can help, improve productivity and efficiency, maximize return on investments, reduce operational costs, but ultimately, provide, excellent customer experiences and keep your businesses safe, So we truly believe, cloud security is definitely something which organizations need to be focused on. And on this note, what I'd like to do is I've got the pleasure of being joined by Richard Beckett from Sophos. And I'll hand over to Richard now to cover off, the challenges customers are facing and how Sophos can help you overcome these and wipe out those avoidable breaches.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks very much, Chris. I will just switch my slides over so everyone can see the presentation. Good morning and welcome everyone. My name is Richard Beckett. I'm from the cloud security team here at Sophos, and welcome to today's session. And really what we're hoping to do today is to set you on a track to wipe out some very avoidable weaknesses in cloud security posture that can create breach points for a criminal to start to launch their attack. You see, in the eyes of the adversary, your cloud migration unfortunately really brought you one step closer to them, with the potential for these attackers to search for and target these gaps in security posture all across a larger, more dispersed attack surface area. And of course, being the cloud, all done over the internet. Now, the criminals are already taking advantage of these weak points in security. This is something that was really underlined in the recent State of Cloud Security survey here at Sophos, where 70% of organizations who are hosting data, who are hosting workloads in the cloud, actually told us that they had now suffered a security incident in the last 12 months. And that's kind of a level of threat that moved very little actually between the countries that we surveyed. And this is just a small sample of the 26 countries that made up that overall percentage. And what I'll do through today's session is probably revisit this data throughout, just to give you some different viewpoints as we tackle certain different topics through the session. Now, unsurprisingly, detection and response of threats is a top concern as well. It was actually a priority area in at least 4 out of 10 organizations that we spoke with. Now, that is in part because of the quite fragmented landscape around cloud security. Many customers either beginning with point products, maybe where they're replicating the security approach of private data centers or on-premises, as you start to lift and shift applications or maybe workloads to the public cloud before you start to refactor those applications later on as you get more used to the cloud services and tools available to you. Or because teams find themselves now building a cloud security strategy really from the inside out from those cloud providers' own ecosystems, using the multiple separate tools available from each different cloud provider. Or it's possibly around investing expensive skills in the development of custom kind of do-it-yourself projects or integrations with open source tools. So altogether, this creates quite a fractured view, a fractured visibility, kind of low efficiency for operational teams, and has that potential to create gaps in security posture as well. Now, this is why it's important to have a layered defense, just as you're used to having on-prem or in those private data centers, and all managed through a single console for better visibility. One that's able to provide, a consistent and efficient view and ability to manage security across multiple different clouds. Now, this is exactly what Sophos brings, and why our single platform is now trusted by over 150,000 customers around the world. Now, essentially, the Sophos security platform here boils down into three main elements. Firstly, you can see it on screen. We start with this. We start with a complete portfolio of cloud security products and services. So we're talking things like endpoint detection response, managed threat response if you want a series of external experts to take over actually responding to and detecting threats within your environments. It's also going to include firewalls, workload protection, cloud security posture management, and SaaS email security as well, as often a starting point for many organizations in their cloud journey. Plus, we're also going to extend that protection to areas such as endpoints and mobile devices to ensure that not only are the cloud platforms kept secure, but the access into those consoles and tools is also stays secure. Now, the second element is the single management platform here, which is called Sophos Central, through which you can start to manage all your protection. So everything here is in one interface, whether that be in one or spread across multiple different clouds. Get that single view and that single management experience. Now, the third element is integrating all these pieces together. We call this this integrated cybersecurity system synchronized security, because it starts to share threat information and system health and security intelligence between these next-gen products in order to automatically adapt and respond to the latest security challenges. And together, this all delivers, unmatched protection and efficiency for your teams all across AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and Kubernetes environments as well. Now, this layered defense really does provide some of the best protection out there against the attacks that are actually hitting organizations today. As you can see here, those attacks being reported by organizations in that recent survey, probably nothing new to you. The fact here is that, as you've moved to the cloud, so do criminals. They are extending what already works and just applying that to new targets and a new attack surface area up in the cloud. But as those threats start to evolve and as new strains start to emerge, the artificial intelligence embedded into Sophos protection can quickly identify, it can adapt, it can block those threats that are currently unknown to us. But while these threats are recognizable, probably the methods used to get into your cloud environments, to launch attacks, it might be a bit of a different matter to some of you. So let's take a little look at how attackers are getting into cloud environments and hopefully some of the lessons that can be learned there as well. Now, as you can see here, accidental exposure really continues to plague organizations, unfortunately. And this is again reflected in those survey responses. And this is 3,500 IT professionals that were surveyed here. So you can see the kind of the base of data that we're working with. And you can see there that misconfigured cloud assets, which create gaps in security, were actually exploited in sort of 2/3 of attacks, so 66% of attacks exploiting that weakness, while 33% of attacks using stolen credentials to get into the cloud provider accounts to start launching their attack. So with misconfigurations, potentially being quite new to many of us, I just wanted to spend a little time to look at why they are such a big problem today, why attackers are exploiting them. And to do that, we'll start with a little analogy. And we'll start with on-premise or private data center setups. Now, I like to think of security here a bit like this building, where all access goes in and out through one single point. It's the same for your network. All traffic is going in and out through a well-defined ingress-egress point, all protected by your firewall from threats. So nice and straightforward, right? But the cloud, should I say, kind of blows that whole concept apart. In the cloud, you need to think of your network more like this building, where you've got multiple windows, multiple openings. They're all going to equal multiple potential access points for someone or something to get in and out. So all it's going to start to take now is for someone to say, misconfigure a route table on your firewall or your native cloud security groups, and now your virtual machines running private server workloads or maybe hosting sensitive data are suddenly going to be accessible from the internet. Plus, you will likely now start to introduce new cloud services as well. It's half of the point in moving to the cloud, providing things like shared storage, containers, database services, serverless functions. And these services, well, they can't have a security agent run on them. So your surface area for attack now becomes larger, becomes more dispersed. And these services can again be easily misconfigured to allow things like public access to the internet, ports to be left open, data to be left unencrypted, and so on. And this is really starting to move your assets now one step closer to the criminals, because they can all be accessed, they can all be searched for over the public internet. And attackers are actively searching for these weak points in security posture through automated searches. And we found this out in a recent threat research project here at Sophos, where we actually spun up 10 different virtual server workloads spanning different geographic regions. And we sat back to monitor the failed login attempts over a 30-day period. And you can see those login attempts on screen. Now, over that period, if I add these all up for you, there are around 4.5 million failed login attempts via RDP. So it's an average of 13 a minute, about 757, I say about, I've got a note there, 757 per hour, with the fastest instance here being Sao Paulo, just 52 seconds. Obviously, that's a long way away from a lot of you. The UK actually came in at 1 hour and 13 minutes from the time that we spun up that resource to the point at which it was identified and a login attempt was made to it by an attacker. So still very fast, still need to respond very quickly to that sort of scale of automated searches. Now, the name of the game here now is really to, organizations need to prevent these weak points, these misconfigurations in security posture. You need to detect any changes that might introduce them as well. And you need to do that all faster than an attacker can do an automated search to find them. So, simple, right? But what are the most significant challenges affecting organizations' ability to identify those attacks? Well, it's really the familiar trio that you've probably been used to hearing about for years, right? But now, for many organizations, you're managing maybe multiple cloud providers. You may then have to wrangle with dozens of individual services and configurations without a common dashboard to bring all that together. And It's going to equate to more data, more alerts, and new skills that you've got to acquire. So how can you be better prepared? After all, not moving to the cloud is not really an option. If you want to grow as a business, and increasingly now you want to improve or expand your remote working experience for all your employees as well. Now, to achieve that goal, what I'd highly recommend that you do is deploy a cloud security posture management solution, or CSPM for short. Now, these tools, they combine and also extend those disjointed services from cloud providers into a single interface, like is the case with Sophos Cloud Optics. Now, Cloud Optics provides this complete picture of your cloud assets across multiple cloud environments, and it's going to monitor spend and give you recommendations to optimize that spend. It'll detect insecure cloud configurations and deployments. It'll detect access anomalies into your cloud consoles, and also detect things like overprivileged access roles, those identity access management roles used to manage and work on services. It's also going to detect compliance failures as well. And it will do all of this from the development cycle through to the ongoing security of live cloud services, all with guided remediation and automated remediation where possible to fix those issues as fast as we possibly can. And this is probably potentially quite a new area of security to some of you. So we've also taken steps here to make CSPM as accessible as possible. And we've done that by including a core set of asset discovery and security scanning capabilities with our workload protection product, which is called InterceptX Advanced for Server with EDR. So it's going to extend that protection beyond server workloads, which you're probably already running today, against malware and fileless attacks and ransomware and all that nasty stuff. It's going to extend that protection to critical AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and Kubernetes cloud services as well. Because ultimately, we really want to make it as easy for you to secure your cloud servers and ensure the right configurations and monitoring of data and other workloads, make that all as simple and easy as possible for you to roll out. Now, Cloud Optics is also going to help you by automating the risk-based profiling of security alerts. And we do that because if you're used to running cloud services, maybe things like Azure Security Center, for instance, you may be used to a quite undifferentiated stream of alerts coming into those tools. So what we're doing is here, while this is a cloud native service, we've been in the security business since 1985. So we've got an awful lot of data, we've got a full labs operation behind us, and that allows us to ingest all this information from cloud providers and prioritize that in terms of risk for you, so you know what to jump on first of all. So we're going to risk-based profile all of these alerts. We're also going to provide you with customizable searches across your cloud environments, your accounts, and your assets as well. So what that's going to do is help you quickly identify or quickly answer questions that are going to make your teams more efficient, more effective, able to kind of reduce those incident response times. So questions like, what do I have running in the cloud to start with? Not just servers, but other critical cloud services like storage and databases. And not only give you a full inventory, but also visualize that on demand into a network topology diagram as well. Excuse me. But we're also going to allow you to quickly see things like, do I have misconfigured resources that can be exploited in an attack? And also, who is able to modify services and security settings so I can appropriately work with teams in terms of their own workflows, their own policies to ensure I'm not introducing risk, too much risk into my environments. Now, as well as that, we're going to give you this ability to hunt for potential threats as well and security weak points. So what we're going to do there is allow you to identify things like overprivileged users. or maybe groups or and cloud service IAM roles, to really allow you to follow that principle of least privileged access, giving people appropriate levels of access into cloud services. So if an attacker gets in there, they can't exploit a bunch of permissions, bunch of access permissions that people don't really use or need. And do things like helping you avoid exposing RDP, as we saw in our threat research project a little earlier on. That RDP is going to allow attackers to effectively knock on your front door when they shouldn't even know it's there in the first place. Now, all this kind of makes it possible for you to wipe out a range of avoidable security weaknesses, really, and potential breach points, all when Cloud Optics is actively managed in the first place. And what we're going to do today, we're going to cover these top 3 areas. So from things like the sort of low-hanging fruit to maybe more advanced areas of configuration, as in a review of the newly onboarded accounts, customers into the Cloud Optics service. These areas were the most worrying trends, the kind of top 3 trends that we identified around organizations presenting weaknesses in their security posture. So as you can see here on screen, it's from exposing RDP, as we saw in our research project earlier, and creating access roles and excessive privileges that can be exploited, and misconfigurations of data storage, from things like unencrypted databases and shared storage through to shared storage with public access that an attacker could search for and list and sync off to their own local storage. But all of these can be wiped out. So let's take a look at how Optics is going to help you wipe those out. Now, first, we want to ensure that RDP access is restricted from the internet. Now, we saw how RDP was used in that experiment earlier. Now, the potential security problem with RDP over the internet is that attackers can use various brute force techniques to gain access to your virtual machines. And once the attacker gains access, they can then use your virtual machine as a launch point or a kind of launch pad for compromising other machines on your virtual network, or even start to attack networked devices outside of your cloud provider environment. But as you can see here down at the bottom half of the screen, this is a view of Cloud Optics alerts. And you can see there how the continuous security scans are going to alert you to this issue. They will advise you on the affected resources associated to that problem. And what that's going to allow you to do is not be kind of overwhelmed by multiple alerts. Because if I've got, say, 5 resources all affected by this common issue, Cloud Optics will alert you once. It won't alert you 5 times. So you're fixing the root cause of the problem and the associated resources, not each individual resource every time. And if I was to drill into these alerts, it's also going to provide me then with guided remediation steps to disable RDP, with links to cloud provider KBAs where needed, even direct links into the correct pages within those cloud providers. It's also going to even allow me to push that task out to other members of my team through things like ServiceNow and Jira, so I can track those tasks through to completion and really push this into a standard workflow for keeping you secure. Okay, so that's RDP. Next, we're going to cover overprivileged IAM roles that can, these can also be avoided. It's all too common, unfortunately, for maybe new teammates or in development or maybe engineering to be set up with privileges that you simply don't need or use. You don't need all those privileges. Now, unfortunately, we saw this in a high-profile financial firms breach last year. Those IAM roles and permissions can all be used by criminals to move around compromised cloud accounts. Think of this as like lateral movement for access. Now, as you can see here, the good news is, bottom half of the screen again, good news is that Cloud Optics is going to start by visualizing those relationships between users, groups, and services. So it's going to make it easy for you to start making sense of the pretty interwoven nature of individual and group-based access to services. But what we can then start to do is start to clean up that picture, stripping away things like resources with no access to services, and focus in on only those overprivileged roles. Then we can further drill into those roles to start to identify what services are not being accessed and how they were granted in the first place, to update IAM policies appropriately with your cloud provider and follow that principle of least privilege. And coming very soon, actually in the next month, we'll also be introducing these sort of right-sizing policies in here, which will allow you to effectively push a new policy into your cloud provider environment if you so wish to reduce these overprivileged roles. So it's all about making it easy for you to visualize it. The reason attackers use this weakness is because IAM is quite a daunting area of security to get a handle on. So it's all about making it easy for you to visualize that and find out where your real weaknesses are. Okay, so lastly, we'll get to data protection. And for most of you, I imagine this is likely to be one of your number one concerns or priorities in cloud security. Now, the good news is that just as we've been protecting data on-prem for years, you can do the same in the cloud. And you've got Sophos Central, that single management platform, as your way to deploy and to manage that protection. So if we kind of think of this as in terms of how you might migrate to the cloud and how you might approach this data protection strategy here, in the first phase of your cloud migration, you'll probably typically start lifting and shifting your physical servers to virtual servers with storage quota before you start thinking about refactoring applications and so on. But to make the best use of budgets, and when you start refactoring, you'll probably ultimately likely start to move that data to storage services, allowing you to separate the two types of resource and allow you to buy virtual servers with lower storage quota. But if you remember from our house analogy earlier on, these storage services, they can't have an agent run on them, and they have the potential to now be misconfigured to do things like allow public access from the internet by attackers. Now, this is where Cloud Optics is going to help. Firstly, by automatically detecting any storage you have in the cloud. So whether that be buckets, blob storage, databases, hard drive snapshots, whatever you're running up there, to give you an accurate inventory to start with of what you have in the cloud. So that's kind of the first challenge here. But also, it's then going to start to analyze those configurations to do things like ensure data is encrypted and it doesn't allow attackers to access it from the internet. So that's how Cloud Optics can start to help here in terms of data. Now we can start to fold in the other elements of the Sophos cloud security portfolio as well. So next, we have SaaS applications. Often file sharing sites are used as workarounds by employees. So cloud application visibility is going to turn our Sophos XG firewall into a cloud application security broker, so a CASB solution, to help you all quickly identify shadow IT in the cloud. And it's going to then alert you to undesirable or maybe unauthorized behavior and give you control to manage it all, again, from Sophos Central. Then you're going to need to secure your data from malicious attacks as well. And that is where InterceptX Advanced for Server comes in. So it's going to ensure things like your virtual machines, your virtual desktops running on them, and as well your auto scaling groups. It's going to provide protection there from the latest threats, including things like ransomware, fileless attacks, and more server or cloud specific malware. So that's our data protection story here at Sophos. Our integrated cybersecurity system that we spoke about earlier, Synchronised Security, can then start to take this whole level of protection even further to start automating some of this protection as well. So what Synchronised Security is going to do is going to enable your firewall and your virtual machine security to share real-time threat intelligence. So what that means practically is it's going to isolate infected virtual machines from the internet and from other availability zones during the automated cleanup of an infection. So it's going to identify any malicious attacks within your network, isolate those virtual machines while the cleanup is in progress. So with it, you're going to get better protection against advanced threats, and you're going to spend less time responding to incidents, because synchronized security is going to take care of all that for you, so you can concentrate on the bigger picture and larger projects that you need to be working through. Now, this whole process to back that up takes around 8 seconds from identification of a threat to cleanup. It's not getting in anyone's way. It works quicker than I can even explain the features. And that focus on efficiency, that focus on intuitive security management is really what Sophos Cloud Security is all about. Now, as we start to wrap up, what I thought I'd do is just maybe share our cloud security best practices. And this is from working with our own security teams here at Sophos, working with existing customers already using these different tools. And this is all talking from the other side of their cloud migration. So really what they wish they'd have put in place a year, 18 months before. So as we run down the list, item number 1 is really to define your cloud security posture. Understand your cloud provider's shared responsibility model around security. What are you responsible for securing? Now, generally, you're going to be responsible for securing anything you run in the cloud. So use their model to start building requirements in your desired security posture. Next, I want you to enforce and test compliance with your desired posture, right? And you can use platform level services from cloud providers that you use to do that. In practice, however, that's probably going to mean wrangling with dozens of individual services and configurations without a common dashboard, and definitely over multiple different provider consoles. So that's why we'd highly recommend, as I mentioned earlier, deploying a cloud security posture management solution. Those tools, they're going to combine those disjointed services into a single interface. They're going to extend them with their own intelligence, like is the case with Sophos Cloud Optics. So what you'll do then is get a consistent inventory of your assets and continuous insight into your current state of security. We're going to measure that against your posture that you've defined, and also indicators of compromise within your accounts. Now, the next major topic is to identify the cloud provider shortcomings. And this is really where Bytes can really help. They're going to be able to advise you on third-party solutions to address these areas of additional weakness that we haven't really had time to cover today. So that might be IPS, which would be missing, for instance, on AWS, or on-host visibility and enforcement, or file and record level encryption, for instance. It can help you kind of devise a plan to ensure you're protected against all manner of different threats. Now, lastly, continuously monitor your environment to alert yourselves to deviations from your desired posture. Staying on top of security events is really what's going to make the difference between a good security strategy and an actual secure environment. So whether you would be using a tool like Cloud Optics independently, or whether you're using a SIEM, for instance, tools like Cloud Optics can actually push their alerts into tools such as Splunk. They can push them into areas like Microsoft Teams or Slack channels, or Amazon SNS, for instance. There's even an API where we can hook those into custom tools as well. So it's really about managing and monitoring in the way that works best for your teams, I would say. Okay, so now, whether you have used the public cloud for some time, or maybe you've recently increased usage, maybe you're in the position really where you've had to accelerate migration plans with the whole current global situation that we're all facing. Start with the assumption that attackers are going to find your cloud assets. So to help with that, the team at Bytes is offering this great new cloud security assessment service, where you're going to receive guided setup of the Cloud Optics product. The Cloud Optics is a read-only, agentless SaaS-based service, so very low impact, low risk there for the business. Then for 30 days, the team is going to work with you to complete a security and compliance review of your environments, flagging up any kind of initial kind of red flags that you need to get under control quickly. And then at the end of the whole 30 days, they're going to present back a summary of those findings with you and start to identify any follow-up actions to start to really harden your security posture. So a great way to get a health status check in terms of how you would fare against attack, how your environments are configured and how they look ultimately. And I'm sure the team is going to be in touch with you to tell you more about that and take you through the ins and outs of it. But for now, what I'll do, I'm going to hand back over to Chris from Bytes, as he's going to share a little insight into how this approach has really helped with existing Bytes customers. So Chris, I'll hand back over to you.
Thank you, Richard. Very excellent presentation there. So just to kind of bring this to life a bit for everybody on the call, along with Sophos and Cloud Optics, we work closely with a customer of ours who are, a leading sports data analytics organization, and we're a large AWS consumer. They had challenges across visibility across their multiple cloud estates, and this also presented, a huge challenge for them with keeping up with compliance that just wasn't really achievable with the native tools that were available to them. With Cloud Optics, they were able to provide multiple development and operations teams with clear visibility across their cloud estates, organize and reduce those alerts that they were seeing, and drive a culture of security accountability among those teams that weren't really traditionally associated with owning that level of security. Off the back of this, they were also able to enable those teams with security tools that could easily be embedded into the existing product workflows, and support adoption of the tools available, really resulted in dramatically shrinking incident response times, staying on top of the compliance that they needed to adhere to, overcome their cloud challenges, and kind of help to wipe out those avoidable breaches. So we've seen a lot of success, and it is truly a very valued solution, which a lot of customers are seeing a lot of value from moving forwards now.
Super. And then I think we can switch to Q&A, can't we?
Excellent. So yeah, we'll just submit the questions and answers here. So as mentioned at the start of the call, there is the option to raise questions via the panel you'll see on the right hand side, and we've had a few come through so far, so let me just read these out to you, Richard. Bear with me 1 second.
No problem.
So the first question we've had come in: what constitutes an asset in the Optics product? We use serverless components in Azure, so have hundreds of individual function apps, web apps, etc.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Good question. A cloud asset really in Cloud Optics means a single virtual machine instance, including, and that would be any server instance or database instance basically that's going to be running in your cloud environments, and that benefits from assessment analysis from the Cloud Optics service. So if I took Azure, for instance, you kind of asked the Azure question there. So within Azure, you'd be talking any virtual machine, any Azure SQL Server, Azure database server, and Cosmos DB as well. Things like AWS, that would be EC2, so again, the virtual machine, an RDS. Google again is the same, so it's any virtual machine, any SQL database. Kubernetes nodes are counted, but we won't duplicate that count if they're already counted under, say, an Amazon EC2 or an Azure VM or a Google VM. So we try not to duplicate any counting there. So very simple from that point of view. So server instances, database instances is what we'll be counting, and Kubernetes nodes. I suppose worthwhile pointing out that what we really want to do is we've really tried to construct the licensing in a way that encourages you to segment accounts, because that is one of the best practices out there, is to, if I have individual teams or projects and users, they should all have separate accounts. So if an attacker gets in, then they can't traverse lots of different accounts within your environment. So to encourage that, the cloud optics is sold in packs. So if I take an instance of, so you could, one pack might be for 100 assets, for instance, and those 100 assets can be spread or consumed, if you like, across either AWS, Azure, and Google, a mixture of the three, and any combination of accounts and environments within those three cloud providers. So really quite flexible. So we don't want to penalize you for defining your cloud environments in the best way possible. That's cloud optics. I'll throw in another one just because I think it'd be helpful. I mentioned earlier that cloud optics is available as a standalone product, if you like, its own license, and there are also features embedded in the Intercept X, the workload protection product as well. So if you have those features, so if you're licensing Intercept X for server instead of the full cloud optics license, what we'll actually do is give you a 20% uplift to your like licensed virtual machines. So what that means is if I have let's say I'll use 100 again. So let's say I've got 100 virtual machines and I want to protect them all with Intercept X for server. The cloud optics quota, if you like, within that would be 120 cloud assets. So that gives you the ability to then monitor the 100 VMs, and then 20% would be consumed in addition to that of cloud services, so storage, databases, RDS, for instance, all that good stuff. And we find that an average customer needs about 10% uplift in terms of what they're running in terms of VMs. So plenty of room there for you to grow out additional cloud services. So hopefully that helps. Bit of ad-libbing there on the end of the question.
No, excellent. A lot of detail there. Very useful. So another question we've seen come in. Do you see more cloud or infrastructure as a service adoption with working from home?
Oh yeah, yes. I suppose, yeah. Luckily, life hasn't changed too much for me. I worked from home for 3 years before, and I'm working home still today. But we have noticed a big uptick. What we've really seen is the uptick reflected in virtual desktop deployments in particular. Well, I suppose two things. We saw a lot of increased demand for our firewall services and our VPN services initially through XG Firewall. So we saw an initial spike for that. What we've seen over the sort of the course, I suppose, of the last 5 months is quite a dramatic uptick in terms of Intercept X for server licenses being deployed into the cloud. So maybe where a customer had a number of licenses that were either using or not, and redeploying those into cloud environments. Because Intercept X for server, you could imagine like a virtual desktop environment, whether it's a single or a pooled kind of version. It's just running on a virtual machine, so it's susceptible to all the same threats. So yeah, we actually saw a 3-fold increase over the space of a couple of months, from sort of, I think it was around March to May, of in terms of a 3-fold increase in terms of Intercept X for server licenses being deployed into cloud environments. So yeah, quite a big uptick from that. So yeah, definitely seems to be more of a case of there. What we're finding now the dust is kind of settled a little more, is, and half the reason we rolled out this free security assessment, is that now the dust has settled and people have maybe increased the velocity of their cloud migration and pulled that forward in time. People now want to get more of a handle in terms of, okay, now what do I have up there? And do I know what my teams have deployed? Are there teams that I'm not aware of in terms of what they're deploying? And let's get a handle on everything we have running. And now they're kind of turning to cloud optics more, and that free assessment to get that initial handle and health check on how they look now. Yeah, hope that helps. So yes.
Great stuff. And another question has come through here. Can our Sophos licenses be moved to the cloud?
Okay. Yes. Well, some of them, I suppose, is the best way to answer that. So we just spoke about InterceptX for server. So the beauty there is if you are running InterceptX for server on a physical server today, that license is fully portable and can move with you to the cloud. It can all be still managed within the same console in Sophos Central as well. So that's nice and consistent, just flows with you. Firewall, while it's kind of the same technology ultimately behind maybe say management experience, that would need to probably be resized as you move over to the cloud. So yes, we can still support you, but your license isn't necessarily transferable. It needs to be resized. Things like the Cloud Optics service, that is purely cloud. That doesn't monitor on-prem or like private data centers. So that would only work in the cloud in the first place. Okay.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Richard. Well, I believe that's all the questions that have come through on the answer board here. However, firstly, I want to say thank you to everybody for giving up your time today to join us on this webinar. I hope you found it very informative and useful and beneficial. You know, we're here at Bytes. We're here to support you all the way with your cloud journey and your cloud security. As Richard has touched upon, you know, we can help you take advantage of the cloud security assessment. And we're keen to support you with that as well. If there are any further questions off the back of this, you know, please reach out to myself. I'll share my details with you, also to your Bytes account managers or via the tell me more at bytes.co.uk. But we really hope that you found this session useful. Thank you again to Richard, and we'll be in touch in due course, and the webinar recording will be sent out shortly as well.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.